Hello and welcome. Well, I've been reading this week Proverbs 19 and verse 17 says this: "Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done." It's a great verse, and it's been a real challenge to me as I've been thinking about that verse. You see, I think it's a glimpse into God's heart. God loves generosity and God loves the poor. What's really interesting as I've been reading it is that this verse was written by a guy called King Solomon. And King Solomon was attributed to being one of the wealthiest men who'd ever lived. Sometimes it can be easy, can't it? Or maybe quite natural to despise or mistrust people who are different in a social economic way to ourselves. So I think it would have been very natural for King Solomon, the wealthiest person, to turn his nose up at the needy, or even to have been so removed and so distant from them that he wouldn't have even noticed them. But he didn't think that way at all. Not only was Solomon the richest man, but he was also one of the wisest, according to 1 Kings chapter 4. And in his wisdom, he wrote this proverb about generosity. One thing I love about this proverb is that it shows us that God identifies himself with the poor. Solomon is saying giving to the poor is like us giving back to God. It's lending to the Lord. And then we see that God responds generously with generosity of his own. You see, it says that God will reward those who are generous to the poor. Now, I have to be honest, it doesn't say in what way we're going to get rewarded. So we can't go around assuming that if we maybe give £10 to someone for a meal, maybe someone out on the streets that we see, that perhaps we're going to walk along and on the pavement there's going to be a £20 note. That's not necessarily how this works. But I think that's a really good thing. Because generosity and the way that God rewards us occurs on a much bigger scale. You see, it's possible that it might just mean you get financial reward. Sure, that's one option. But it's also possible that it means something less tenuous and less fleeting. Something maybe more substantial, like joy and peace or gratitude. Maybe he will reward you with greater character. After all, the very act of generosity is demonstrating that you trust God to provide for your needs. You're building character through demonstrating that trust, because it shows that you trust God and you trust that he'll meet your needs. So today, I wonder, how will you be generous? How will you demonstrate God's love to the people around you? And how might God reward you and shape your character?